Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa salatu wa salamu ala ashrafil mursaleen. Sayyidina wa Maulana Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam wa alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تتخذوا عدوي وعدوكم أولياء. This ayah of the Quran in Surah 60 Mumtahana, verse 1, translates that, O you who have attained to faith, do not take my enemies, who are your enemies as well, for your friends, for your awliya, for your protectors, showing them affection. It continues, even though they are bent on denying whatever truth has come to you, and even though they have driven the Rasool and yourselves away, only because you believe in Allah, your sustainer. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala warns them against inclining towards them, the enemies of Islam. Don't incline towards them in secret affection. For Allah, is fully aware of all that you may conceal as well as all of that you do openly. And any of you who does this has already strayed from the right path. Brothers, there have been many events that have been taken and fast moving in West Asia, that is in Gaza, in Palestine. But the so-called Trump Gaza peace process has dominated the news. Today, I think the 3rd of October, just 3 days, 4 days before the 7th of October, and it is marking that date when a horrific genocide we have witnessed live streamed for the last 2 years. It also marks a year since Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah was martyred by the Zionists by exploding tons of bombs and also detonating pages that killed or injured 4,000 people within 10 minutes. And a few weeks ago, it was September 11th, 2001, better remembered as 9/11, that began the slaughter of about 5 to 8 million Muslims in Iraq, in Afghanistan, Syria, Libya, Lebanon, Yemen, Pakistan, Sudan, and other Muslim countries. Well, Israel shook up the complacency and the security of the super rich Gulf emirs, the sheikhs, the kings, the dictators in the Muslim world today by blasting Iraq in an attempt to assassinate the Hamas leaders that were negotiating a ceasefire proposal. This proposal that was crafted and drafted by the United States of America and Israel. And this attack on Doha, on Qatar, it led to 16 nations from the OIC, from the Organization of Islamic Countries, and the Arab League. They rushed to Doha. They expressed their solidarity, but all of them were cringing in fear. Trillions of dollars that they have spent on Al Ubaid, and we discussed this a few weeks ago, the American base that is in Qatar, and they spent billions of dollars on supporting the United States of America, but none of them came to protect them. America, in fact, warned the Qataris 10 minutes after the attack took place. Then we find, as a result, Pakistan and Saudi Arabia developed a deal. It was marketed as a grand commitment to regional security. But in reality, this defense deal is neither about defense nor security, but it is a cynical arrangement by design to safeguard the monarchs, the kings, the emirs, the sheikhs, and the generals while giving cover to Washington and to Tel Aviv. Let us remember what Pakistan did. Pakistan actually, can you believe it, Pakistan nominated President Trump to get the award for the Nobel Peace Prize. And this is after all this has happened. We are told in Surah Araf, chapter 7, verse 196. It says, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Inna wali Allah. Verily, my protector is Allah. And He has bestowed this divine writ from on high. And it continues and it says, وَهُوَ يَتَّوَلَّى الصَّالِحِينَ. For He, it is Allah who protects the righteous. Have these sheikhs, these amirs who speak Arabic, not read these ayahs of the Quran, but let me really address the much celebrated Trump-Gaza peace deal endorsed by Israel and many other Muslim countries. I read from a press statement that was issued on the 29th of September, and they released the following, and I'll just read the first paragraph. It says, the foreign ministers of the state of Qatar, the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan, the United Arab Emirates, the Republic of Indonesia, the Islamic Republic of Pakistan, Republic of Turkey, and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and the Arab Republic of Egypt welcome President Donald J. Trump's leadership and his sincere efforts to end the war in Gaza. This war in Gaza, this genocide that has been bankrolled and financed and armed to the teeth, and they are thanking him for his sincere efforts to end the war in Gaza. And these countries, these Muslim countries, these Muslim leaders, they assert their confidence in his ability to find a path to peace. This is a cowardly, shameful betrayal of the Ummah. President Donald Trump unveiled his much-touted 20-point plan. It was 21 points. The 1 point was removed, he got confused, but it was removed because he afforded the protection to Qatar. And he issued this 20-point plan for a ceasefire in Gaza, which no Palestinian had seen. This document was not given to any Palestinian, in which he described it as a landmark deal to end 2 years of a devastating war. Well, we know it wasn't a war, it's a genocide. But in reality, what is this document if you analyze it and if you study it? It is a document of surrender for the Palestinian resistance against a brutal occupation. This document has sanctified the genocide. It is carried out by the Zionist forces, which has killed tens of thousands of people, mostly women and children, 70% of them, and has uprooted the entire population of this occupied land. In fact, it is a declaration of victory for the entity, for Zionist Israel, accused of war crimes. And who is in charge of conducting this in the future? The British Prime Minister, Tony Blair, and Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner. They have played a key role in preparing the so-called peace plan. Kushner was also the driving force, we must remember, of what they call the Abraham Accords. He made a big deal about saying it's called Abraham Accords during the first term. But he is saying that here we have those who have betrayed the Muslim Ummah are in charge, and the Muslim countries are endorsing it. For his part, Blair, let us remember Tony Blair, he actively supported the American invasion of Iraq. It cost 1 million lives, Muslim lives, and he based it on false claims that there were WMDs, weapons of mass destruction. There was no such thing that was ever found, and no repercussions for that. Many of the Arab world, in fact, also regard him as a war criminal. Well, he is the same one who rejected when Hamas won a fair democratic election in Gaza in 2006. It was endorsed as fair by President Carter of America at that time, and Tony Blair declared it. Professor Samuel Aryan, he's a Palestinian who was arrested for 10 years in America, and he runs SIGA, the Center of Islamic and Global Affairs. He described this 20-point plan as a poison pill. It is laced for honey. What is the honey? First thing. We all want this genocide to stop. We all can't witness this ongoing thing. So that's the honey. We are going to stop the genocide. We will allow aid to go through legitimate professional international organizations. They will allow some exchange of the prisoners with those that Hamas is holding, those who are serving life sentences, but they are unjustly in Israeli prisons. And then reconstruction and rehabilitation will start taking place. We know all that. This is what people want, and they dangle it as something that is going to be done. But what is the poison that is in the honey? They will capture by political means what the Zionist enemy has not been able to capture on the ground, such as ending the resistance. They want to disarm the Palestinian groups, Islamic Jihad and Hamas. They want the release of prisoners without Israel, the full withdrawal from Gaza Strip. They control Gaza's security, and they will continue to do that. They will control Gaza's politics and economy. They will impose international tutelage. The authority will be run by the international organizations. And I mentioned to you who are the military, are those Muslim countries. They will separate Gaza from what is going on in West Bank. Where is the Palestinian state that is going to come from? They are murdering over 1,500 people in the West Bank, and it continues by the so-called settlers. Then, worse, they are framing this entire thing as if it is concerning Israeli security. But who are the occupiers? Who is committing the genocide? No problem about that. International law means nothing to them. They will continue in other ways, ethnic cleansing, the ongoing war crimes and continuing aggression will continue. The case against Netanyahu in the ICC dismissed. Palestinian Authority must remove it. What about the ICJ case? No mention about that. What they seek, and let us be clear about this, is the surrender of the Palestinians. They don't want peace. How can this genocide be stopped? We cannot continue to witness this. Is it impossible for us as an ummah to stop this genocide? And I want to take you back to 1973, where the Arab oil producers that was led by Saudi Arabia, and the leader at that time was King Faisal. He imposed an oil embargo on the United States of America and other nations backing Israel during the October War. He imposed an oil embargo. That bold move triggered a global energy crisis, and it helped to bring about a ceasefire. I wonder, are Muslims not able to do something like this? It was a rare moment of Arab assertiveness on the world stage. But it is worth noting, this happened in 1973. In 1974, King Faisal, who did this, was assassinated. Is this in the mind of those cowardly rulers at the moment? He was killed. Fast forward to today. Israel's relentless bombing of Gaza has killed more than, they say, 65,000. But Lancet, a medical magazine, talks about 183,000. Mostly women and children have been massacred. A United Nations Commission recently even accused Israel of committing genocide. Yet, this response by the Arabs has been largely symbolic. Now contrast this with what they did in 1973. We have the ability. Let us, from 1973 till today, the GCC countries, and I'm only going to focus on GCC, the Saudi Arabia, Emirates, Qatar, Kuwait, Bahrain, Oman, they have spent $500 billion on Western weapons. Saudi Arabia, 150 to 200 billion dollars. Emirates, 50 to 80 billion dollars. Qatar, 30 to 50 billion dollars. Kuwait, 20 to 30 billion dollars. Oman and Bahrain, 10 to 20 billion dollars. We Muslims have 2 billion adherents. We make up over 25% of the entire world. One in every 4 persons in this world is a Muslim. 70% of our oil reserves are in Muslim countries. 50% of the natural gas reserves are in the Muslim countries. 21% of the uranium are in Muslim countries. We have a standing army of 10 million soldiers. We have soldiers, we have drones, we have a nuclear armed country. We have countries that are manufacturing tanks and planes. And we are located in some of the most important geographic areas. We control the Red Sea, the Black Sea, the Mediterranean Sea, the Arabian Sea, and the Indian Ocean. The Suez Canal is considered to be the shortest link between the East and the West because of this geographic locations. So how is it possible that 10 million Zionist Jews control the fate of 2 billion Muslims? And with all this arms, with all this weaponry that they have bought, not a single bullet from all these countries has entered Gaza from any of these Arab GCC countries. They have $2 trillion invested, and we are being held hostage by 10 million Zionists. $2 trillion invested where? In the West. And yet they shamelessly agree to this Gaza International Transitional Authority that is going to be led by a war criminal, Tony Blair. Brothers, is there any other way to put it but this colonial barbarism that a war criminal, Tony Blair, will be ruling over the ruins of Gaza as some sort of imperial viceroy after Israel's settler colonial genocide? What do they want? What does the West and what do the Muslim countries that are supporting want? They want the problem to be eradicated. And what is the problem? The problem is resistance. It is a resistance that Hamas and Islamic Jihad and the Palestinians and Hezbollah showed. Resistance to the oppression, resistance to enslavement, resistance to apartheid, resistance to the genocide that is taking place, to starvation, to resistance to the murder of children, the resistance to the rape of women, the resistance to the humiliation of the men that are unable to feed and protect their families, the resistance to those who want to preserve and practice their deen, their way of life. And there are many examples where Muslims have actually in the past history taken up arms against the tyrants. There's a story of the woman who was under the control of the Romans, where she actually cried when she was actually molested on the street. And she cried, "Oh, Muttasim, Muttasim," they mocked her. They told her, where is your Khalif? Shout to him, he's not there. Throw her into prison. And when he heard of it, he pulled out an army from Baghdad, where he was the ruler at the time, and he went and challenged the Roman Empire, defeated them, and released this woman from the prison. There are those examples. We have some people, in fact, our kings and rulers are not only silent today, shamefully silent. They don't even have the courage to actually tell them, no, we cannot agree with you, Trump, on this kind of issue. We have the leverage, but we are not using it. There are others. We are talking about that we are Hanafis and Malikis and Shafis and Hanbalis. Do you know the history of these great people who led us? Imam Abu Hanifa, was in prison. He died in prison because he objected to the leaders and the rulers of that time. Imam Shafi was born in Gaza. And he and Imam Malik and Imam Hanbali were flogged and imprisoned because they had the courage to stand up to the rulers at that time. We are too afraid to do that because we will not have our ability to go and perform Umrah in Saudi Arabia. We will not be able to go and holiday in Dubai. So we keep silent. We should learn. We say these are our leaders, but we should learn to follow them. And tonight, they are commemorating a great saint of Islam, Imam Sheikh Abdul Qadir Jilani, may Allah be pleased with him. Let us read about his history, how he spoke against the rulers at the time, and he lived up to the age of 90, and how he actually confronted them and corrected them. So this is something that we need to learn about our own Islamic history, and we need to apply it in our lives. These meetings that they have called up really should be discussing not their defense of their thrones and their crowns, but on how to support the resistance movement to achieve justice for the oppressed, to end the illegitimate rule, and to establish fundamental human rights. Otherwise, it is a futile exercise simply to inflate their own self-importance and their egos. When will these Arab leaders learn that they cannot depend on a fox to guard their hen house, appeasing and paying protection money to those who enable mass murder of the Palestinians? Really, it is not diplomacy. It is complicity. Allah tells us in the Quran, it says, O you who believe, be strict observers of justice, of bearers of true evidence for the sake of Allah, even if it is against yourselves, or against your parents, or against those near of kin. Whether it is against the rich or the poor, Allah is more regardful of both of them. And therefore, do not follow your vain desires in order to do justice. And if you distort or evade true evidence, the truth, remember Allah is well aware of what you are doing. So I ask you, these leaders of the Muslim countries, do they read these verses of the Quran? Do we read the verses of the Quran? Are we deaf, dumb, and blind to the cries of those children in Gaza who are buried under the rubble of the American-supplied Israeli bombs? You know, what their plan is, and I'm going to leave you with some of these ideas, that in the World War, in Japan and in Germany, they controlled for 75 years and subdued those countries. And this is exactly what they want to do in Gaza. Control it, subdue it, and through them, subdue the rest of the Arab world so that they can carry on. This is their plan. This is their plan. The Palestinians, they do not seek charity within the fenced zones. They seek their rights. They want to live their right to live with dignity, the right to return to their homes, the right to exist free of siege, free of starvation, free of displacement. These are rights promised by the very instruments that arose from the ashes of Hitler and Mussolini's abuses. If those promises mean anything, they must be enforced now. There is a Palestinian author who wrote about Hamas. His name is Azam Sultan Tamimi. And he wrote, whatever happens and whatever reply Hamas is going to give today or tomorrow, that Trump's new plan is not one of peace, but of capitulation. So long as the Zionist occupation continues, the flame of resistance will remain alive. This is what he says. Even if surrender is forced in one generation, a future one will resume the struggle. This is the lesson of history. And Allah tells us, and I conclude, it says in Surah Ankabut, verse 69, and those who strive hard in our cause, we will certainly guide them in the ways that lead to us. Verily, Allah is always with the doers of good. Wa akhiru da'wana,